As always, before we begin, I would like to announce that my first two books, Winged Horse Warrior and House of Old, are already available. The links will be down in the description if you would like to check them out, as well as the links for everything else. Thank you so much for your support and your time. I really hope that you enjoy the video. See you there! Welcome everybody to this new episode of Analyzing Fiction. I am your host, R.H. Naranjo, and today we are going to be talking about We Are Legion, We Are Bob, the first book in the Bobiverse by Dennis E. Taylor. And in this video I will try to speak softer, not only because of my throat, but because of this little thing which likes to amplify the volume, and it's kind of annoying. And I really hope that I did not destroy any of your ears while recording this video. Sorry about that if I did. So I'll try to speak a little softer throughout this video. So anyway, We Are Legion, We Are Bob. It is the first book in the Bobiverse, and as always, let's begin with the POW, with the possible smell addiction. Its acronym is in Spanish, and let's begin. Yeah, this book has a pretty average smell. I'll give it a 5. It's not, it pretty much doesn't smell anything. Not that it smells bad. It just has pretty much no smell. So yeah, that's the POW for today. I hope that you enjoyed. See you later. Just kidding, we're gonna be talking about our author here, Dennis E. Taylor. Dennis E. Taylor was a Canadian programmer before he became an author. He made his debut recently in 2015 with a self-published book. He tried to search for an agent for a long time, didn't find one for his first book, so he self-published it, and at the moment he was still working as a programmer. And this first book, it did like a self-published book would normally do, right? It's not great, it didn't get as many sales as one would expect with traditional publishing, but yeah, he did a good job with it. So yeah, he published his first book and then began writing what would become this little buddy here. And eventually, for this book, he did manage to get an agent. He did achieve to obtain an agent with We Are Legion, and alongside him, my dog is there making who knows what, yeah. So alongside his agent, he began looking for a publishing house, and this publishing house was very hard to find. They didn't find any, so his agent ended up publishing the book with his own publishing house. However, the success of We Are Legion came much later when he made when Dennis made a deal with Audible, the audiobook company, and they ended up making an audiobook for We Are Legion. They made the audiobook, and the audiobook eventually became very successful. People really liked it, and it ended up becoming the best science fiction audiobook of the year of 2016, I believe. So yeah, it was the audiobook, the one that eventually pulled him into the road of famous authors, and he eventually began publishing more. He published For We Are Many and All These Worlds, I believe, consecutively. He 1, 2, 3 in each 1 year. So yeah, he published the next books shortly thereafter, and recently, last year actually, in January, I believe, he published Heaven's Rider or Heaven's River. I'm not sure. I believe it's Heaven's Rider. Either way, it'll be written here. So he published this book, which, even though it's not a main installment in the series, the trilogy is already over. It is like a sequel very much in the future that also deals with the characters and all that. So it's a very interesting story. It's only on audiobook, but the reviews that I have seen are very positive. They really enjoyed it. I have not listened to it. Personally, I don't have audiobooks, and I don't think I'd be comfortable with one. I like to read them more. So yeah, he ended up becoming very successful thanks to Audible, and eventually became the #1 New York Times bestseller for the new book, for the one that just came out. And his books generally tend to speak about climate change or disasters for the human race, like nuclear war, something like that. And this series in particular also speaks about how artificial intelligence might and probably will change the way in which people, society overall thinks throughout the future. So yeah, that's essentially the topics that he likes to center himself on. Now we can begin talking about the plot of this book, and it is very simple. It is about a man named Bob who has an economic success. So he goes with his friends to eat, and after that he goes to make a contract. That was the book. He goes to make a contract with a company that ensures that in 100 years they'll have the technology to rebuild his brain and bring him back to life. So he signs and walks out of the building and gets run over by a car. So he dies there, and the second chapter begins with him waking up and being told by a scientist that no, they never developed that technology, but they did create an AI based entirely around his brain. So they made an AI that is essentially a copy of Bob's brain. So yeah, and now they want to send him to space. That's the plot of the story, that's the premise. A very interesting plot to explore. I really like it, and now we can officially begin our review. So, we are Legion, we are Bob. Let's begin with the plot. I really like how the story takes place. I would divide it into 3 parts, even though the book itself is divided into 2. The first part would be the first chapter, essentially when Bob is a human. The second part is when he is on the laboratory, and the third part is when he actually goes to space. And even though that might appear like a spoiler, just look at the cover. It's pretty much obvious that he'll go to space. So yeah, it's not a spoiler, not really. So yeah, those are the 3 parts for the story, and I really enjoyed each and every one of them, especially parts 2 and 3. Part 1, it's just 1 chapter, so yeah, great. As for parts 2 and 3, I really think they were very well fleshed out, and I really like Bob as a character, how he interacts with the story itself. I believe that part 2 might be my favorite because of how the characters interact with Bob and how he interacts with the characters. You really start to see his personality there. And here it's hard to speak about the plot without speaking about Bob, because the book is essentially about him. It is essentially seen through his eyes. So yeah, it's a little hard to split between the two, but I really liked how Dennis worked with the plot, how he pushed it forward, how each scene was just very interesting. I really liked Parts 3, I really like the waiting, right? How it feels to be waiting between one moment and another during the traveling, because he has to get to this other planet, and it's very far away. So yeah, I really liked how Dennis describes all of this, and that now I'm going into a narrative. So we may just go by the plot and begin talking about the characters. And even though there are more characters, especially towards the third section, I really liked Bob, and Bob is a center of attention for this book. I really like how they fleshed him out, how he is described throughout the series, his humor, it's hilarious. I really enjoy every single scene that I have with him. It is a very interesting character to explore, and I loved him for that. I really enjoy what Dennis did with the characters, how even though Bob is nerdy, you can understand his jokes and you laugh with him when he says his jokes. Yeah, it's a very interesting plot dynamic between the plot and the characters, how they interact, how they're related in this book, and I really enjoyed Bob. The other characters, they are very well made, just the same, right? They're very, very interestingly made. I really liked how Bill and Riker and all of them, they each had their own personality, and you could distinguish them from Bob. And I like how even those characters that appeared for less than a chapter or for only a chapter throughout the whole book, and those chapters are small. Dennis, he likes his small chapters, and even though they appear for a very short period of time, that period of time was very, very well used. Dennis really used each chapter to flesh out each individual character, to show us how he acts, how he is, and it is a very, very interesting way in which he does it. Now for the narrative, and the narrative is very interesting for a book with such a large cast. It is all in first person. And if you have such a big cast, you would probably like to do like Stormlight or The Wheel of Time, where they are in third person. That way you can distinguish between each character better. But Dennis does this in first person, and the way in which he solves this, which is by making the title of each chapter be the name of the character, that is speaking, it's very interesting, a very interesting way to deal with this problem. And apart from that, even if the names did not really match, even if the chapter names were not the names of the characters, I would still have enjoyed it, and I would still have put apart each of the individual characters because of their attitudes, because of their personalities. So he did such a well job that for most chapters I didn't read the title, and still I managed to understand, I managed to know which character he was talking about now, and it was very interestingly done. I really enjoyed how Dennis worked with all of this. And lastly, we can go to the execution, and then I can go to sleep because I am exhausted right now. So the execution, this book is very well done. It is a very good introduction to the sci-fi story and overall the sci-fi genre story and overall the story of the Bobiverse. I really liked how Dennis worked with all his characters, how he developed his plot, how he used his narrative. It is very well done, and that is why this book will get an 85 out of 100, so a total of 4 stars. I really liked it and I really recommend it. It is up there with To Sleep in a Sea of Stars and Ready Player One, a very well done introduction to sci-fi and fantasy. So yeah, this is my review for Dennis A. Taylor's We Are Legion, We Are Bob. I hope that you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching. All the links will be down below for you to buy this book, for you to get Windhorse Warrior and House of Old. Thanks so much for your support. I will see you later. Goodbye.